Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again, here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing another Q&A video leading up to Game of Thrones Season 7 on HBO. In this one, I'm going to give my thoughts on what I think about the potentials for a spin-off series after Game of Thrones ends after Season 8. And spoiler warning, if you have not seen the finale for Game of Thrones Season 6. I imagine everybody and their dog has at this point. One thing before we get started with the questions for today's Q&A. Do have to request, with regards to the Walking Dead versus Game of Thrones fighting that's been going on in the channel. There's a lot of it. It's been going on for months now. I did a specific video for that, for which is better, Game of Thrones versus Walking Dead. So if you want to argue about that in the comments, that's cool. Go to the video and argue in that video. That's what the video was intended for. But all of these other videos that we're doing now about either Game of Thrones or Walking Dead, please try to respect the other fans' favorite series. A lot of people, their favorite series is Game of Thrones. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Other people, their favorite series is Walking Dead. Nothing wrong with that either. So for people that love Game of Thrones, maybe if you don't like The Walking Dead, you can just skip the Walking Dead videos if you really don't like it. But please try to be respectful, and if you want to fight and you want to argue, that's cool. Just go to the proper video for that and try not to make it like every single video ever is just people fighting back and forth all the time. It gets pretty dry pretty quickly. So yeah, go to the older video for that if you want to fight. That's cool. I don't care, but go there. Go to the right spot to fight. So there's that. A lot of people requested me to say that just because, just people being disrespectful, pissing each other off, and it not stopping for a long time. So there it is. So please, guys, be respectful of one another. I don't want to have to ban people. I don't want to have to do that. So please be respectful of each other, unless it's that video. So, what do I think about the possibility for a Game of Thrones spin-off? And do I think that they'll do one is pretty much what this comes down to. So, Jon Snow Rules asked this question. He asks all kinds of great questions. He says, Trev, what would be your top Game of Thrones spin-off you would want to see made after Game of Thrones eventually ends in 2018? I would want maybe a Dunk and Egg spin-off or Robert's Rebellion or both. Who knows? George R. R. Martin said there's over 8 million spin-off ideas. LOL. Thoughts? ? And if there's ever a spin-off of Game of Thrones, will you review it week to week if it's good? I personally am into the Game of Thrones world so much that I'll pretty much watch any Westeros-related spin-off series that there is. So you guys can write your comments below about this one and what you'd like to see for a spin-off and if you think they'll do one. So, just to recap, done lots of videos on this. 2 seasons left, 13 episodes between the 2 seasons, unless HBO can talk Dave and Dan into doing even more episodes, which it looks like right now they're not going to be able to. From what we've heard, they're hard set. They don't want to do any more than that, so it's at best, it's going to be around that many. So, yeah, man. So 2 more years is very sad, dude. 2017 will be season 7. 2018 will be season 8. Only a 6-episode season, probably. And that's the end of Game of Thrones, one of the greatest series ever on television and probably the best ever on HBO, I want to say. Sopranos was probably their other biggest series they've had. But in terms of, business for HBO, can I see them let that cash cow go without having something else there to fill that the next year? I can't picture it. All things must come to an end eventually, but if you look at The Walking Dead, for example, and I'm not saying this to try to cause fighting between the two, I'm only saying this because Walking Dead has added on, AMC has added on another series because The Walking Dead is so popular. They decided, let's do Fear the Walking Dead and add that on for another 15 weeks a year to give people something to watch when the regular Walking Dead's not on AMC. It's been a pretty much a smash success. It's done great, and a lot of people have watched it. It's done way better than most of their other shows because it's related, even though, it doesn't have any of the same characters. It still is a success, and it's ongoing, and it's confirmed for season 3 at this point. It gets a lot of ratings and everything. I just can't see Breaking Bad to Better Call Saul as another example of another one AMC has done. I can't see HBO letting this one go like that. 2 more years left. They gotta be thinking of something. They gotta be like, we got to do something. We got to figure it out. We got to do a spin-off or a prequel or something. Some of the ideas Jon Snow rules brought up here. Robert's Rebellion or a Dunk and Egg spinoff, because that's Dunk and Egg is another George R. R. Martin's stuff in the same kind of world, but it's more of like a comedy, which could be cool. It could be cool to see that. It wouldn't have the exact same feel as Game of Thrones. It'd be a bit like maybe Tyrion's stuff in Game of Thrones, which I love, actually, some of my favorite stuff with a lot of the joking and silliness earlier on. He hasn't had as much joking around and silliness the last few seasons, I want to say, because Game of Thrones that's what it is. But Dunk and Egg could be a little bit more of kind of a comedy-based series that could be some fun. So I'd like to see that. That'd be cool. But I would really like to see a direct tie-in like Robert's Rebellion, a prequel, so that maybe they get the actor who was in the flashbacks for Eddard. They find somebody good to play a young Robert, ready for battle and the whole bit, ready to crack some heads and stuff. It would just be so cool to see, even if it was only like a couple seasons and it's not 100% like canon for the books, because they probably have to add some things, and maybe they can get George R. R. Martin to give them a general overview or something of kind of to fill in the gaps, and then they can write in the dialogue and that kind of thing, because he's obviously probably going to be too busy with A Song of Ice and Fire to really be that involved. But I'd love to see him kind of give them a general idea, and then them take it and do their own interpretation with the TV series version of getting to see all these things that happened prior that we've gotten short flashbacks of now. But it'd be even cooler to see them really dive into that and see some of the other stuff that would have happened with Robert and Eddard and I don't know, something like that would be really sweet. If they're going to go with like a spin-off series or something happening after the events of Game of Thrones, then they have to be really really creative, because then they're going to have to create a lot of new characters, and who knows who's going to be alive at the end of season 8. There's no way to know for sure, but they're going to have to create some kind of chaos or something crazy happening. And if they do it right after the timeline of Game of Thrones, then it could get into some issues affecting the original story, and kind of the idea of maybe, because I'm thinking how Game of Thrones will probably end is probably Daenerys and Jon will be victorious over the dead and Cersei. And then after that, most likely, there'll be peace, and that's when the series will end, because it's peace. So they'd have to do like a time skip or something if they were going to go after it, and it would be a little tricky to do. But business-wise, I'd be shocked if they didn't do something. If they just left it on the table, they were like, okay, there's Game of Thrones, it's done, we're finished with it, and we're not going to do any others. Here's Game of Thrones cup, the cup. Even that, too, like selling merchandise for Game of Thrones and everything else they've done, I would be shocked if they just left it and they were done with it and there was no spin-off and there was nothing. And I don't think that's the best thing to do for fans. I think you should be there for your fans. Like, for example, for me in the channel, you guys are my fans, viewers, but and a lot of you are my friends. But, like for me, too, sometimes I think about, oh, maybe I don't want to make a video, this kind of thing, I'm kind of lazy, whatever. You owe it to your people. You owe it to, if it's a business, your customer, your client, your audience, whatever. HBO owes it to us, I think, because we're the ones that made Game of Thrones Game of Thrones. Without all of us subscribing to HBO and getting the station and paying for that and buying the merchandise and doing everything we do, Game of Thrones isn't Game of Thrones. So just to leave the series like that with your fans with nothing, I think HBO is going to have something for us. So that's my prediction. We'll see. I'll be shocked if there's nothing. And I think the best idea for me would probably be a prequel, at least to start. And then maybe later they could do a spin-off or something, because it's such a cash cow. They're not going to want to let it go just like that. But write your comments below, guys. What do you think HBO is going to do when it eventually ends? Are they going to let it go? Or the next year, do you think they'll have something for us, some kind of a prequel or spin-off? Write in the comments. Next one's from Prosthetics, and he says, the hate the show gets is mostly by book purists. I love the books, and I think they're better than the show. Obviously, the show has passed the books in time, in chronology time frame. The show is good, but not as great as everyone claims it is. The show is too inconsistent, and a lot of plot lines don't make any sense most of the time. With that said, I still thought this was a good season, but definitely not the best. It's tough to compare. I haven't done a best season video yet for me, because season 6, most of the season was not the best. Like, it started off really good. The middle was, aside from Hold the Door, which was amazing, Hodor. Aside from that, it was kind of the middle of the season wasn't the best of the season. But it ended with the last 2 episodes on such a huge note. It's almost like those 2 episodes by itself should make it the best season. But a lot of people, they like season 4 the best. And I can see that. There's a lot of stuff to really love in season 4. You get Tyrion, you get the Lannisters and everything that's happening with that. You get some major, huge character deaths and everything. So season 4 is pretty amazing, I'll be honest here. Season 5 I also liked a lot too. And then season 6 for me is just the ending too makes it. But I agree with what he said here about about the book purists being sometimes getting mad about Game of Thrones and the stuff they do. But you have to understand, it's the same thing with The Walking Dead, that they have to interpret it differently for the TV series. It's not the same medium, and the time range that it's told in is not going to be the same. There aren't as many characters in the TV series version. It's more streamlined than the books, A Song of Ice and Fire. Daenerys is quite a bit different in the TV series. In the TV series, we get the sense she's our ultimate kind of good guy in the series. So is Jon. The books, it's quite a bit different. You have other characters in there too, and it's just... It's a lot different, to be honest with you, so with regards to it. But that's a good thing, because then you have one version where you can like a more streamlined version, or you can have another version like the books where it's more in depth, more detail, more characters, and a lot more things happening, and they've had to take out a lot of stuff to make it fit into the TV show. Some people might be mad they didn't extend the show longer, more seasons, because they took out a lot of stuff. But the showrunners, they have an idea of how many hours. They said about 73 to 75 hours they want to do the story in. And there could be other reasons for that too. There could be reasons like people burning out, not wanting to work that hard forever. I mean, who knows how many hours a week they're working? Do you guys know how many hours? I haven't heard in an interview, but I would not be shocked if they were all the timers, meaning 70 hours a week. I'm not even talking 60, I'm talking like 70 to 80, meaning you wake up, You go to sleep, you wake up, you eat, you go to work, you work the entire time. Maybe you come home, spend an hour with your family. You go to sleep, you wake up, you do it all again the next day. I would not be surprised if a lot of the people that work on Game of Thrones were not living that kind of life. I'd be shocked if some of the directors and some of the people were not all the timers. So, it's going to be hard for them to do it, and they obviously are not going to want to do it forever, and that's the plan they came up with. So if they have to take out characters and kind of streamline it more for the series, it makes it more accessible. It's kind of like movies, but not as bad. A lot of times movies really streamline stuff because they only have so much time to fit things in. So in their time slots of an hour and a half or something. So, but I love the show. I think the visuals in it, the scenery, the environments, the castles, and just everything about the series just blows me away. So I'm not sure where you're going with that. You can like the books better if you want to. Yeah, of course you can, because it's a different version. But definitely for me, comparing it to most shows I see, Game of Thrones is just on such a high level. It's incredible. There's some things I don't like as much, like the Jaime stuff and some of the characters they've taken out, which are pretty cool. But hey, what are you going to do, right? It's a different medium. So the real life's involved, real people's lives and time is involved, and planning is involved. So is what it is. So do I think? So he also says here that he thinks Game of Thrones is overrated or is not as great as everyone claims it is. I can't get behind that, dude. I don't think Game of Thrones is overrated at all. I think it's one of the most incredible stories I've ever seen played out on screen. And there are so many shows that I wish could be done as well as Game of Thrones. So I don't know where you're going with that. What are you comparing it to? If the show's not good or it's crap or whatever, or it's not, or you think it's overrated, what do you have to bring up that you think is better than it or makes it look bad or something? I don't know. I mean, I think they're doing almost as good a job as you possibly can do. Pretty close. Battle of Bastards, Last episode wins the winner. This is about as good as it's going to get. It's probably not going to get much better than that. It's probably not. I can't think of anything that comes close to as good as those episodes were. Mason Belcher says, Q&A for Game of Thrones. Do you think when Jon and Daenerys meet Tyrion, they can help convince Daenerys to trust Jon because of his and Sansa's history with each other? Also the little history that Big T has with Jon. That's so funny. I love the line earlier on in the series in the first season. What's your story, bastard? It's just, oh man, like just think about that for a minute. Like, what's your story? It's just, and he calls him a bastard. All dwarves are bastards and their fathers are. It's just, oh my God, man. Some of those lines are just, you can just ponder like that, for a while there and just think about the meaning behind those lines and how over the seasons is like, oh my God, so powerful, right, as fans of the characters. So, but yeah, definitely Tyrion being on Daenerys' side and him being a hand of the queen, he knows Jon, he knows of Jon, he's going to hear about Jon and hear what has happened with him, and definitely that's going to help, I think, the alliance between the two of them because Tyrion is there. She trusts Tyrion, and he knows them all. Even Sansa, Tyrion always felt bad for Sansa. He always did. And no matter what she did, he never, he always just felt bad for her because he knew what happened to her and everything, and their whole family and everything, and it was awful. And Tyrion is kind of like, he's a Lannister, but he hates the Lannisters pretty much, right? Think about it. Aside from, he likes Jaime, right? He likes, because he knows Jaime's not a bad guy for the most part. But yeah, he hates, of course he hated his dad, and he's always been at odds with Cersei. So Tyrion is awesome, and yeah, it's going to be really cool to see. And the last one for this one will be from Vivian Lascosas, and she says, so the Hound is going north. He was there when Ned was betrayed by Littlefinger. He was very friendly with Sansa. Do you think he's going to tell Sansa or Jon about this situation while eating chicken? I mean, what Littlefinger could do. He has the veil only because they wanted to help Sansa, and I think they even pledged alliance to Jon in the finale. Basically, if this happens, Jon's going to pull his little finger up his... Okay. So what he's asking here is pretty much, do I think the Hound is going to tell the others, Jon and everybody, Sansa and everybody, about Littlefinger and what he did all the way back to Eddard in the beginning? Do I think that's going to happen? Will they trust him, and then will they go after Littlefinger because of it? Well, Littlefinger did save them too, though, with the veil. So that makes it difficult. It's pretty tricky, but he was there, so he would know what happened, of course. So that could be interesting if they find out some info. So I think he might have stumbled or brought something up there that could be very, very crucial to the story if the Hound is able to give that information to, our kind of alliance in the North, King of the North, and Sansa. And then, how that's going to affect how she sees Baelish and what happens with that could be very, very interesting and cause some trouble. And maybe that's part of the storyline we'll see in Season 7. It's a great call-out to Viv Van, and I hope so. But I tend to think it probably won't go that way. But if it did, that would be really interesting to see and dynamic. And you're calling it now, so that's a great insight from you. So we'll see what happens, and you can take credit for it next season if that is what happens. And that'll be it for today's Q&A, guys. I hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to thumb it up below. Also, share and fave. And if you're new and you want to subscribe, bottom left to subscribe. You'll see lots more Game of Thrones videos from me. Send me your questions. Continue to send me what you got. Hey, I can just keep making them. If you guys want more Game of Thrones Q&As, I'll just keep going. Whatever. I'm fine with it. As long as you guys are sending me questions, you have stuff you want to talk about, send it to me, man. I'm all for it. Let's do it. That's it for this video, guys. We'll see you again real soon for another Game of Thrones video. As always, this is Trev. I'm saying peace. Later, guys. See ya.